Hello and welcome to the Merle and Locke podcast. I'm Merle.
And I'm Locke.
Set sail and low expectations for everything nerd, accompanied by a healthy, albeit shame for helping important banter, lack of focus, and questionably acquired knowledge.
And more.
And more. I wanted to start homeschooling my daughter.
Understandable.
I got nothing, no gripes necessarily against the public school system. It was just,
I do.
Okay. I know a lot may, but it really is tough when you have a kid and they're going to public school and they're having a hard time. And my daughter in particular was having a very hard time. The pacing was always off and it was always throwing her off and she was having trouble. There's a lot of issues as far as dramas and bullying and blah, 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 things that are distracting her from the task at hand. Every time she'd come home having all this trouble, all this heartache, all these frustrations, it was so overwhelming. And sometimes she was just like, she'd have to let it all out as soon as she gets home. And I tried to cater to her, comfort her. I don't give her too many tasks to do when she gets home as far as chores and stuff, because it's a long day at school. And I'm like, man, just come home, take it easy, take a load off.
We know the feeling of coming home and being like, I just want to relax.
Yeah. Every time she come back home, it was getting to a point where it was multiple times a week where I'd have to comfort her, remind her that I have her back and, I'm looking out for her best interests. And she was getting to a point where she was getting fed up. We talked a long time about it. I said, well, maybe we could try homeschooling. If you're having that hard of a time at school, maybe we can give this a go. Can kind of step up, create a schedule for you. It would mostly be cyber school, but I had plans to fill out a schedule of what our expectations would be throughout the day, because it's not going to be like a vacation. That's not at all what I want. I don't want her putting things off or half-assing things just to get assignments out of the way. It was going to be strict, but a lot would be on her. I would make her fill out her own schedule every day, know what her assignments are, report back to me what the expectations were for the day, no screen time until after everything is complete. We'd have extracurriculars. She'd still be going to jujitsu classes. And we talked about other extracurriculars that she could pursue, just to get some kind of socializing aspect. Like I said, we talked a long time about it, thinking that maybe it was a good option for her. And I brought this information or these plans to her mother. I even typed up the entire schedule and everything and gave it to her. And I said, we're exploring this as an option. We could give it a little test run just for her next grade. And then if it works out, maybe we can continue. If it doesn't work out, she can go right back to public schooling. And her mom was obviously
not so keen on the idea.
Yeah, not keen at all. She was apprehensive about it, of course. She said, okay, well, how about this weekend we can get together and we could talk about this in person? And I was like, that's an excellent idea. Let's do that. I went over there and we sat down for a while talking about pros and cons of doing this. And of course, most of my arguments, I guess, fell on deaf ears, really. I mean, I feel like it was a losing battle from the start.
You felt like you went out and you decided to talk to a brick wall for the day.
Yeah. But I mean, there's some legitimacy to her arguments. She was stating as the importance of the whole socialization aspect and, all these hard times that our daughter is having at school. It'll help to strengthen her in the future. Everything that she was saying, I was trying to combat it again and again, just in favor of our daughter so that she can maintain some semblance of sanity by the end of the school year. It was starting to wear on me having to see her have such a hard time. Of course, by the end of it, it went nowhere. And we told my daughter, we were like, okay, so your mother and I disagree, so your mother wins. And
That's a way to phrase it.
Yeah. So she's going to continue public schooling. And I remember when I got home, I was thinking about it a lot. Just like the different arguments we were making back and forth, I realized that all of her mom's arguments are things that I have found valuable. we've had so many conversations in the past, so many podcast episodes of analyzing conflicts and building wisdom as a result. We had an episode prior talking about building morals, resolving these conflicts. And so everything that her mom had argued was stuff that I had spouted again and again on these podcast episodes.
Weird.
I was like, wait a minute. I'm completely losing track of myself and the stuff that I find extremely valuable. So I was like, she's absolutely right. And I believe the same thing. Where's my head at? It made me realize the paternal instincts in me as a father to protect my daughter. It completely clouded my judgment, building that resilience in my child so that she can thrive in society.
You would rather just be her shield, protect her from all wrongdoings, all terrible things.
Exactly. It just completely clouded everything. Everything that I think that she should experience and make her a stronger person. Oh man, I can't even explain it, because just realizing that, I was like, I need to get my head straight. The fact that I could forget all of that in the first place just from seeing the troubles that my daughter has been forced to face, it's kind of mind-boggling, right? It made me think of how often we have stories. I remember you telling stories about Mama Bear.
Right. Yep.
Stepping up to the plate, and just that parental instinct completely clouded judgment in defense of your offspring. It's not something that I've ever given any credit to necessarily, or was able to see just how clouded you could become until this happened. And all these values I tried to instill in my daughter, and it just all went out the window out of nowhere.
I can't add as much because I don't have the experience, but I do know at least a little bit of what I feel I would be if I were in that kind of position. To any degree, especially daughter, because Jane Doe and I have talked, and she's just like, if you had a daughter, you'd be absolutely protective. Daddy's little girl right there. And I go, yeah, you're probably not wrong there. If a little boy broke her heart or decided to say something terrible to her, that it's going to be hard for me not to want to go out and show that little boy just how terrifying I can be. But you can't do that. And I go, I know I can't. I know it's not the right thing to do necessarily. But, sometimes people need a little fear of God into them. That's just how that goes. Don't expect that there's not going to be consequences. We've also talked about the education system and how I look back at stories of old. I wasn't born for it, but I know people have told me how things used to be. There would be an actual community, and somebody in that community would teach all the kids. And that's when you hear about like the one-room school, and all the kids just gathered into this room and studied. Said if only we had schools like that anymore. Communities took care of one another. As parents, we should also be teaching our kids things. We shouldn't just rely on the school for every little thing.
That was one of my biggest arguments, was that I wanted to be more hands-on in her learning, because I feel like I could better understand things of value that I wanted her to learn and wanted to build skills. But in that public school setting, the kids are just faces at some point. There's so many of them, and nothing against the teachers. It's just there's so many kids that come through their classes focusing up on every single kid.
You have so many personalities. There are so many ways to learn that unless you're capable of being able to switch your teaching styles to match every single kid, and then of course you got the board of directors who are going to be like, no, we want you to teach this single thing this way every time because we think it works. Who better to teach your kids certain things, especially when you know typically how they learn? You've seen them grow up. You've seen what it took for them to walk, for them to start talking. Why should you not be able to teach them some of the really fundamental things about life.
Well, I know one of the big things when it comes to homeschooling, because I was homeschooled for a long time, and going back to the socializing aspect of it, I realized the importance of that because of how naive a person I had become being homeschooled myself. I didn't start attending school until the end of middle school. I remember like people taking advantage of me. I was always thinking that people had my best interests at heart.
Oh, no, they do not.
No, that's just what I was accustomed to. And I didn't meet all these different kinds of people. I didn't realize that being able to read people was at all a skill because I just thought everybody was a good person. Obviously, I was very wrong. It took a long time for me to become accustomed to that. Whereas my daughter, thus far, she is incredibly savvy when it comes to different people and just being able to see through the bullshit. When it comes to seeing people for who they are, she's at the skill level now in her preteen days, more so than I was almost into my 20s. And she wouldn't have been able to learn that had I been homeschooling her all this time. She'd be just as naive as I was. That could be a dangerous thing, especially for a girl. As a guy, yeah, maybe you can get by a little easier. It's not as detrimental, maybe.
Both are pretty important, guy or girl. You don't want to be too naive in a world where there's too many cruel people with just ill intent, with no empathy for anybody else in the world. I'm not saying it's a very common thing, but there's a fair deal out there. And sometimes they really don't do it on purpose. They just don't even think about it.
They don't have any self-realization of what they're capable of.
If they do realize that they're capable of it, then that is somebody who's rotten in their heart. Absolutely. That'll catch up to them. You don't have to worry about that.
Well, I mean, one would hope. I mean, in the movies it does. But,
all right. In the movies don't lie.
Yeah, the movies don't lie. Once again,
I also read it on the internet.
Yeah. So homeschooling, I completely get it. Being able to protect your child, ensuring that they have a solid education, as long as you're present, of course, because some of those homeschool kids, they don't do so well, especially if their parents are somewhat negligent, as far as their education goes. Or not present, or working full time, and their kids don't have that discipline. As long as you could sort that out, then yes, I could completely see the benefits of it. But unfortunately, I might have to side with having to put your kids through that. God, I'm hesitant to say the word trauma, but
experience. It's an experience.
Okay. Yeah. Putting them through that experience, I think it could prove very beneficial now looking back on it, because God, every fiber of my being wanted to just take my kid away from that and, give her at least a little break. Let her breathe some fresh air for a little bit and try something new. But no, Mom said no.
And that's just how that goes. Mom said no, so that's how it goes.
Yeah, Mom wins. Damn it.
If you enjoy the Merle and Locke podcast, please consider becoming a patron by going to patreon.com/Merle and Locke, or simply follow the link in the description. Thank you.